Hello friends, how are you all doing? I hope you are doing well, and I am Chetna welcoming you all back to our English lessons. Today we are going to start with our new chapter of English literature, that is the 3 questions. Now, the 3 questions, it is written by Leo Tolstoy and it's a very amazing story. As when we'll read the story, we'll come to know how interesting it becomes. So this is basically a story that revolves around a king, okay? The whole story is revolving around the king and the questions that he's seeking. As the name of the chapter suggests, the 3 questions. So it's revolving around 3 questions that the king is trying to search for. Now, you must be thinking, what are the 3 questions? Why is he looking for those 3 questions? Now, these are the 3 questions which he is looking for. But before moving forward, we will be focusing on this thing. Why is he searching for the answers of these 3 questions? Now, think about it. There must be some reason he wants answer to these questions. Now, the reason why he wants answer to these 3 questions is he thinks that if he gets the answer to these 3 questions, he will never fail. His kingdom will never fail and he will also never fail in any aspect of the life. So what are these 3 questions? We'll be reading one by one. So the first question that he seeks the answer of is, what is the right time to begin something? When should he start doing something about his kingdom, about his people, or the right time to start anything, okay? The other question he wants to seek the answer of is, which people should he listen to? What is the most important thing for him to do? Now, what he does, he sends his messengers all over the kingdom and ask everyone that who can answer these questions. Many wise people answer these questions in different manners. Okay, now we'll be studying what different answers he got. So what the king actually did, he sent his messengers all over the kingdom promising a large sum of money. Okay, and so obviously we are different people, we will be giving different answers because the way we think is different. So different people came up with different answers. Now let us see what the answers were and whether the king was impressed or not. Now, to the first question, what is the right time to do something? Now, some of the people suggested that the right time, like we are taught from the beginning of our schooling, we are given a timetable, right? So, some of the people suggested him that make a timetable and follow it. Some of them said that it is really impossible to decide in advance what is the right time. Why was it impossible? They were of this point of view that you are supposed to do something right in that moment when you are supposed to do it. So, you cannot decide in advance what will be the right time to do anything. Now, few of them suggested him that council of wise men. Now, why they were focusing on council of wise men? Now, the reason behind the wise men council was that if you think about one person is not capable of answering everything. So a council was suggested that as many as people will be there in the council, the more you can reach the good answer easily and on time. So these were some of the suggestions, but the king was not very much impressed. Now what happened? Now some of the people also suggested that what happens if you have to take instant decisions? What will you do in that case? So, or you have to take some decisions that are in future or urgent decisions. What are you going to do that in that case? So a person suggested that you can hire some magicians to look into the future. So he was not very impressed with any of the answers. These were some of the answers given by some people regarding to what is the right time. But if we talk about the king, he was not satisfied with any of these answers. Now, we see that different people gave different answers as we saw. So, the king was not satisfied. If the king was not satisfied, so he gave no reward. Like he promised this large sum of money, right? But no reward was given. Why? Because he wasn't satisfied with any answer. So, now, therefore, the king decided to seek advice of hermit who was known for his wisdom. Now, who is a hermit? Hermit is a person who lives in solitude and is a person who is very religious and okay. So he seeks the advice of the hermit. He thinks that if anybody is not able to give answers to my question, now maybe the hermit has the answers for my questions. So he decides to go to the hermit's place and seek the answers. Now let's see what happens forward. Now, what happened? Now, if we look into the life of a hermit, he's a person who lives a very simple life. So, he decided, like the king decided, that he will not go with his bodyguards or his horses. He will just go simply to the hermit's place and lead a simple life like the hermit did. Because, see, if we have to interact with somebody, we have to be at the same level. So, the king was somewhere here, but he wanted to match the pace of hermit. So, he decided that he will not go with any of his bodyguards. He will go alone and in simple attire. These were some things about the hermit. Now, the hermit was old and weak. He lived a simple life, as we have discussed, and he wore ordinary clothes. Therefore, the king also wore ordinary clothes, and he lived in live in woods. Woods means not the wood, actual real wood. It means the a solitude area, like you can say isolated area for religious purpose. He used to live there. Okay, so now what happened? The king left. King went to the hermit's hut. Hermit was digging the ground. Now, when the king enters to the hermit's hut, he sees that the hermit is digging. He's digging and digging. Now, what the king does, he asks his three questions. He goes to the hermit and tells him that I am here to seek answers to the three questions. And he repeats his questions again and again to the hermit, that these are these three questions and I am here to seek your advice. But it was totally contrary to his expectation. What happened? The hermit did not pay attention to him. The hermit went on digging the land. Okay, the hermit went on digging and digging. So what happened? King had no other option. King offered. After some time, king offered his help to the hermit. He said that, may I help you? Because he saw that the hermit was digging from such a long time and he was full of sweat and everything. So king offered his help to the hermit, and in return, what hermit did? He accepted his help and asked him that yes, you can help him. Now, what happened? The king was digging the beds. Okay, now after digging some time, digging for hours, what happened? Now king was also tired and king stopped digging, and he again repeated his question, that hermit, I am here to get answer to my questions. These are my three questions, please answer them. But the hermit did not answer. He thought that the king was tired, so he asked the king to just stop digging and let him dig. But what happened next? The king did not give up. The king kept on digging again and again. So the king did not give him the spade. Now, as the hours passed by, the king was digging and digging and digging. Now he started becoming very impatient, because the basic aim, the basic goal of the king was to get answers to that question, but he wasn't getting the answers. He started getting impatient because of not getting the answer. So what happened next? Now now he again asks the hermit the questions. Now let's see what happens next. There comes another man in the picture. He comes running. Now let's see what happens. Now here comes someone running. Okay, who was that person? Now in the picture we were talking about the king and the hermit, but in this picture there comes a man running. So that man had some wound in the stomach and he was bleeding right from there. He was a bearded man. Now we'll be reading that who that man was really and what was his intentions, why he came into the picture and what happened. So he was a bearded man, wound on his stomach, and he was bleeding. Okay, and he fainted and fell onto the ground. King washed and dressed his wound until last bleeding stopped. So now what happened? Both the hermit and the king saw that the man was rushing. A man was rushing onto them, and he had a wound on his stomach, and it was bleeding also. So they helped him dress his wound again and again. Now what the king did? The king was dressing his wound again and again, but the bleeding was not stopping. The bleeding did not stop. So the king repeatedly changed his clothing and dressed it again and again until the bleeding stopped. So the king played an important and major role in saving that bearded man's life. Okay, both of them, the king and the hermit. Now the man was feeling much better after he got dressed and his bleeding stopped. He started feeling feeling better about it. Right? Now, after feeling better, what happened? He asked for some water. Then king provided some water to the man. Now, by the time he provided some water, everything was fine. He was feeling better, and it was the evening. So, what the sun has set by this time, laid the man on the bed, but he was in his unconscious state. Who? The bearded man. He was dressed up by the king. He was later on, after drinking the water, he got into his unconscious state, and he was laid on the bed by the king. Okay, so the king was also so tired, he also laid on the floor and slept. Just imagine. Now the king went to the hermit to live a simple life. Here you can see the difference also, that that in his kingdom, could you imagine the king sleeping on the floor? No. Yes, you're right. So but here in this case, the king slept on the floor, and he actually had a good sleep, because the text describes so that the king had a very good sleep. He slept very peacefully. Why? Because he was tired. So in the morning he woke up, and what happened? To his surprise, the bearded man was apologizing. He was asking for forgiveness from the king. Oh, please forgive me. Now the king was very surprised that why is this bearded man asking for forgiveness? Then he told him something. Now the bearded man explained him, he told him that he swore revenge on the king as the king put his brother to death and seized his property. What happened? Now the bearded man explains the whole scenario to the king. He explains him that the bearded man was waiting outside somewhere on the way of like back from hermit's place to the king's palace. The bearded man was waiting in the way for the king to return to the palace. Okay, in the evening he was waiting, but to his surprise the king did not return back. Now why was the bearded man waiting? The bearded man was waiting so that he could kill the king right there and right then, and he could take revenge from the king. Okay, but as the time was passing by in the evening, he could not see the king anywhere. So the bearded man got impatient, and he was hidden somewhere in the way. So he got out of his way and he started looking for the king. On his way for looking for the king to kill him, what happened? One of the soldiers of the king recognized him, recognized the bearded man, that the bearded man was the king's enemy, and he shot that bearded man. Now, this is very ironical that the bearded man ended up going to the hermit's place, and the king, he wanted to kill the king, and king was the same person who saved his life. So that is why he was asking for forgiveness, that king, if you have not saved me, I would have died. Okay, so that was the reason he was asking for forgiveness. Now what happened? But the king, on the other hand, he was very happy. Why was he happy? He was happy because he made peace with his enemy. The bearded man was his enemy, but by saving his life, he made peace with his enemy, and the king also promised him that he will return back all the property that he has seized. And on the other hand, the bearded man also promised him that he is going to serve him for the rest of his life. So that's how the situation ended. They both made peace, and it was a good ending. Now what happened? Now in the end, you must be thinking, what happened to those 3 questions of the king which he went to ask from the hermit? Now the king at last again pleaded, the hermit, he pleaded and he asked that, please answer my 3 questions. Now surprisingly, hermit was again at the same place. He was digging the first day. Now he was sowing the seeds. The hermit was sowing the seeds. And to king's surprise, the hermit answered that you already have the answers to the questions. Now the king was surprised that how do I have the answers to these questions? I don't have answers. So the hermit explained that you already have the answers to this question. He took the scene back, he rewinded the picture, and he told the king. Now what he told the king was important. He told the king that just imagine if you have not waited yesterday, and if you have not pitied on me and helped me in digging the beds, you have went back You have gone back to your place, and what happened then? The enemy would have killed you. This would have happened if you have not pitied on me, if you have not helped me, if you have not considered me important at that time. So you would be killed by now. But what was the situation currently? The king helped him. So the most important person at that very moment proved to be the hermit. So the hermit, by this whole scenario, he was trying to explain that the very important person at the moment is the person you are with, and the time, any time to do the right thing is now. So this is what the hermit was trying to explain the king, that yes, you already have the answers, you just need to see them clearly. Okay, so you have already been answered. This was how he was relating the whole picture. Okay, so these were the words of the hermit. Remember then, there is only one time that is important, and that is now. It is the most important time because it is the only time we have power to act. This is the only time where we can act. Instead of planning what we are going to do tomorrow or in the next moment, the right time to do anything is right now, and to plan is also right now, and to act. Okay, so by ending this chapter, we have learned that most important time is right now. You can save this time and do anything that you want to do right now. And most important person will be the person and is the person that you are with right now. Okay, in this particular moment. And most important business is to do good. So that's how this chapter ended. I hope that you have learned this chapter, and I hope that these answers not only help the king, but they are going to help you also in your day-to-day life, because these are important questions in which our life revolves around. So I hope that it is clear to you, and we'll be meeting in our next video whereby we'll be discussing the question answers of this chapter. Until then, take care. Bye-bye.